VeloVoices. Many voices, one passion. Pro cycling for fans by fans.
Hello and welcome to podcast number 7 for VeloVoices on April 21st. This is Chris in Virginia, and tonight I am joined by Kathy in London.
Hello.
Kathy, how are you doing tonight?
I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, we're not joined by Tim tonight because he's sick, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So everybody send your best wishes to Tim. It's going to be weird. It's just you and me.
I know.
I heard a couple of descriptions tonight. Are we the Rocky and Bullwinkle of podcasting? Are we the Bonnie and Clyde, the Ross and Rachel, the Luke and Leia, or the Fred and Wilma of podcasting?
I would like to think that we're the Luke and Leia. However, I think we're going to be probably the Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Okay, I'm not going to ask who's Bullwinkle.
No.
I think that I'm going to have to take the Bullwinkle role.
Yeah, because I'm a flying squirrel.
Right, okay. All right, well, Tim, we already miss you, but we hope you feel better. And Tim will be back with us at least in 2 weeks. And then we're also planning on doing a Giro preview in the next couple of weeks. So look forward to hearing Tim's lovely British accent during both of those podcasts. All right, tonight we are going to cover, we just finished a brilliant Ardennes week where we had 3 great races in 8 days. We also had Provence-Peel on the 10th, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about all the Ardennes races, and then we're going to talk about a little bit about Trentino. And then, of course, we're going to review our Ardennes team, and surprisingly enough, I think we did quite well, Kathy.
We did, considering
even though Ilo Kaiser was in Turkey.
Well, yeah, because, everybody that I picked was complete crap, but, that's all right. That's all right.
You know what?
I made out really good
won the sprint today in Turkey.
Sorry?
If he would have won the sprint today in Turkey, I would have been like, okay,
yeah,
he's in.
Yeah.
'Tis not the case, though. All right, so we'll talk about our Ardennes team, and then we're going to talk about what's happening in the next 2 weeks, and we'll end up with our sprint finish. We got quite a few questions tonight from all of you guys, so thank you so much for that. On the 10th, we had Provence-Peel, and this is kind of a race that, to me, it kind of introduces. It's like the transition between the cobbled classics and the Ardennes classics. It's super hilly. There's 25 climbs in it. It's 200 kilometers. And last year, we all remember Thomas Vogler winning with a 32-kilometer solo attack and 1,000 grimaces. Well, this year it was a little different. We had a 6-man break, and both Gilbere and Sagan got delayed in separate incidents early in the race and had to do bike changes. But really the key action kind of kicked off 18 kilometers from the finish, where Greg Van Avermaet just rips the peloton to shreds, just spitting guys out the back. And so basically he creates this elite group, and in the elite group is, of course, his teammate in the rainbow jersey, Gilbere, and Sagan, who's just coming off brilliant form from the cobbled classics. So with 2 kilometers to go, Van Avermaet attacks again with Nicolas Mays, and I don't know where he had the legs. I thought he was going to actually go on to take the victory, but Sagan, kind of was patient, stuck in there, and the group chased back and caught Van Avermaet. And right off of that, Gilbere kind of counterattacks. It was brilliant tactics by BMC, but Sagan was just too strong, and with 10 meters to go, he clips Gilbere for the victory. So Sagan takes the link between the cobbled classics and the Ardennes classics. So Kathy, what do we think of Sagan? We had this whole Pinchgate thing, and then he comes back and he wins this race. And I know that in one of these races, maybe it was Amstel Gold, he gave the podium girl flowers and apologized. And, is he kind of back in the fans' good graces now?
Well, it was actually in this race that he gave her the flowers, and then she had to kiss him.
Yeah,
funnily
okay.
enough. Do you know what? I think, yeah. As far as I'm concerned, he's apologized. She's accepted it. and he just can't do it again. But it doesn't make him any less of a talent. It doesn't make him any less of an exciting rider. So that's kind of, I think everybody's kind of put that behind them now. But what I would say is, Sagan is so talented, but he didn't win any of the big races that everybody thought he was going to win in the classics this year.
Yeah, I mean, there was this guy named Fabian Cancellara who, obviously had both experience and, was kind of a step up above the rest. He did win get Wevelgem, right? And then he goes to win this. And, a lot of people thought that he would actually play a role in Amstel, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But, I mean, what a season so far for Sagan. I think he has the most victories now. I think he just eclipsed Mark Cavendish for most victories this year. And we haven't even gotten to, I think he's going to the Tour of California, right, where he ripped off, 5 stage wins last year.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have the Tour, and I'm sure that he's going to win maybe multiple stages in the Tour. So it truly has been so far, in my mind, the season of Sagan.
Yeah.
All right. So what else do you have to add to that?
Well, I was just going to say it's a mark of how great he is that I'm disappointed of what he's done so far. I guess I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I just thought he was going to win one of the really big ones, although I'm glad that he didn't win Flanders or Roubaix, because that guy Cancellara, I've never noticed him before, but he's really good.
Yeah. Well, and the race that I thought he was really going to win was Milan-San Remo.
Yeah.
But, that was an incredible finish there. So, okay. So, Kathy, we had the first, I think it was last weekend, Sunday the 14th, we had Amstel Gold, which has the best podium girls in the whole
absolutely
all season with the hats and the thrones. So talk us through what happened at that race.
Well, we had a major breakaway going off the front quite early on, and I mean they got up to about 11 minutes before the peloton started to close in. One of the big things about the race was that there was a crash about 90 kilometers to go, one in which Thomas Vogler broke his collarbone. So it was a bit of a nasty crash. And Gilbere was actually caught up behind it. He didn't actually go down. And then he had to wait for his team car. Now, the thing that was interesting about this was Blanco really put the hammer down as soon as that crash happened, which... the race wasn't on, so I'm kind of thinking, I don't think the peloton was particularly happy with them doing that, to be honest, and I kind of thought it was kind of crappy. But anyway, so we get back on, and about 46 kilometers to go, Astroloza goes out of the break and starts to open up a gap, and you sort of think, oh my gosh, could a carrot actually win Amstel Gold? Because he was going really well. But then counterattacks just started to fly off the front of the peloton. It started to get really interesting at about the penultimate ascent of the Coburg. And this is where Roman Kreuziger made a key move, and he went to bridge the gap with a couple other guys to the breakaway. Now, the breakaway had Van Summeren in it, and it looked for a minute like he was just going to TT it to the finish, but his mullet slowed him down, and he wasn't able to get away all the way.
And his power to weight ratio, too, because the guy's like 6'5", going up all these... what an incredible performance by him going up all these hills with these little guys.
Well, it's kind of amazing, like Heijadel today. It's one of those things where they ride immodestly on their bike because they're just all legs and arms, really.
Right.
So as we get on to the last climb of the Coburg, that's when Kreuziger just makes his move, and nobody can get him because I think they were just waiting around too much, and the peloton really missed their chance to reel him back in. So the surprise winner was Roman Kreuziger, who he seems to have been around forever, but he's actually only 26. But yeah, Valverde was second, and Simon Gerrans was third.
Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't pick Giro for our Ardennes team. I think we just kind of forgot about him because he hadn't raced between San Remo and these Ardennes classics in any way that we really noticed him. I think, but
yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about Kreuziger? I know that he's got connections with Ferrari, and I've been reading articles this week. I'm not really happy with kind of his response to these questions about these possible relationships.
Well, no, I mean, I think he does need to explain himself. I just think that it was very odd where he said, "Oh, you should have asked 2 days ago. You can't ask on the eve of a race," because somebody, possibly from Velo News, had asked him about it the other day, and he's just like, "I'm concentrating on the race. I'm concentrating on the race. You should have asked me 2 days ago." And so it's just kind of, listen, if you're being named, you've got to say something. But
yeah. Yeah, and I think that maybe it's because he looks so much like Christian Bale. I don't know. But he's just kind of sketchy to me. But I'm happy for him for winning. I know that last year Astana put a lot of pressure on him to win, and he's obviously a talented bike rider. I mean, there's no question about that. But he really just needs to come forward and say either what happened or what hasn't happened, and then deal with it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to win a big race like Amstel, we're trying to change cycling right now, and if you're not going to be forthright about what's gone on, then I don't want to see you on the podium. I guess that's my 2 cents there.
Well, then there's a lot of people.
And Sagan,
there's a lot of people that you're not going to want to see on the podium. Then I think
it's a hard one.
It's a hard one, yes. And so I'm just going to shut up now.
Yeah, it's a hard one. So Sagan here, obviously, I think we're starting to see his form kind of back down a little bit. He finished 36th in this race, and he kind of, it looked like he kind of got dropped when it got hard.
Yeah.
Which in any of these earlier races, he would have been kind of the guy dropping people. So, I think it's time now for him to get a little rest. And now you had mentioned the Blanco, speeding up the pace after the crash.
Yeah.
I got a couple of things to say about that. So I raced yesterday, and there was a crash in the second half of the race, and I got caught behind it, and the pace immediately picked up as the crash happened. And I was not able to get back on. I tried to time trial back into the field, and there was a lot of wind, and I just couldn't make it. Mm-hmm. I think what happens during some of these... And when I got to the finish, I was like... My teammates were like, "What happened to you?" And I was like, "Well, I got caught behind that crash." And they were like, "What crash?" They didn't even know that a crash happened because I was poorly positioned in the back.
Yeah.
And some of them were up in the front. And really, they didn't even know. And when a crash happens... automatically the peloton's pace picks up because guys are nervous. They're like, "I don't want to be anywhere near that." So they're just like hammer. So I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know. I've definitely seen, like, in certain races, I'm going to call out the movie star team, for example. Last year they were kind of known for this tactic, right? But I'm not sure if that was the case with this crash. I didn't get to see it, so I don't know for sure. But I know that yesterday, I can't blame the guys for speeding up and dropping me. They just automatically did that when the crash happened. So
yeah, I don't know. It just seemed to me that Blanco really went for it as soon. And of course, they knew there was a crash. They have radios, so they knew there was a crash. But the race wasn't on. It's kind of like it's a big difference that if somebody's really started gunning it and then there was a crash, well, then that's the way it is. But I don't know. But it's neither here nor there. I don't think it made any difference to the final podium anyway. But one thing I would say about Peter Sagan Sagan, I'm always saying these names wrong. Please don't anybody tell me
okay.
How much I mispronounce things. It's the first
time. The best was how you pronounced Elo Kaiser though last week. Like you pronounced it like 7 different ways, which was awesome. You were like Kessie.
Kaza. You know what? Do you know what? Most of the time, if I don't know how to pronounce something when I'm reading it, I just skip over it. I just look at the shape of the word and think, okay, well, that's what it is. Anyway, but for Sagan, whatever you want to call him, it was the first time this season in a one-day race that he wasn't on one of the two top steps of the podium.
Yeah, and if you think about that, that's really incredible.
That is, actually. After all I've just said about how disappointing he was, I've just said that. So yeah, there you go.
He's amazing, really. He's been really, if you think about it, he's been the rider, besides Fabian, really the rider of this early season.
Oh, yeah.
I think those two have been unbelievable. And, another guy I put up there, to be honest, who hasn't gotten the results, but who's been awesome, is Greg van Avermaet. Even today in the race, he was lighting it up. The guy rides with such panache. So, anyway, let's talk about Thomas Vogler really quick because he busted his collarbone in this race.
Yeah.
And is he going to be ready for the Tour? Is this going to set him back?
Well, they were talking about it today on Eurosport, and Sean Kelly is sure that he'll be back on a bike in about 3 weeks. Because, once it's all plated up, apparently, it's not a big problem. So I think he'll have plenty of time to do it. And I mean, let's face it, he's a fighter, so, he'll be great. But what I thought was interesting was on Twitter, I mean, there was everything from him being in an entire body cast to having broken legs, or his shoulder was coming off. There was a possibility that it was mad. And then finally somebody said, oh no, his wife rang or somebody and said no, it's just his collarbone. So it's just lucky that it's lucky that it wasn't any more serious than what everyone on Twitter was saying. But there you go.
Yeah, I would be like devastated if I went to the Tour this year, which I'm doing, and didn't see Vogler.
Well,
I'd be heartbroken.
Yeah.
I'm already hearing that I might not see Mr. Cancellara. So
no, I mean he's always said that he wasn't going to do it because there's no. Is it this one there's no prologue? So he, why is he there? I mean that's why he goes. So that he can be in yellow for the first week. But, if that's not there, he's getting ready for the World Championships because he wants the rainbow jersey for the road race. And so do I.
Well, he's got a good shot.
Yeah,
he's got a good shot. All right, well, let's talk about Flèche Wallonne, which happened the Wednesday after Amstel, right in the middle of the week when everybody's trying to work. I actually took the day off of work to watch it and live tweeted it, and it was awesome. So it was a fantastic day, and the race kind of started early with this small breakaway that was in the break for a long time. It was a trio of De Villers, Long, and Van Geulen, and they had an advantage of almost 10 minutes. But once we got to near the final circuits in Wee, then those guys obviously got caught. But Mr. Lawrence Tendam, the Wolfman, with 45 Ks to go, the guy goes off with Romain Bardet of AG2R, and these guys nearly get a minute advantage over the field, and they go over the Wee the second time, and the Wolfman still is out in the front. So that was an incredible ride by him. I mean, he was just on fire. And around that same time, Dan Martin from Garmin flats, and he was one of the pre-race favorites. So I was like, okay, well, his race is over, right? He's going to have to figure out how to get a new wheel and then get all the way back to the front of the group before they go on to the Mur de Huy for the finale. So we'll talk about him a little bit more. So I thought that the Mur de Huy was going to thin out the field, but when they hit the Mur de Huy for the finale, there was still like 40 guys in the peloton. And so you knew it was going to be like guys were just going to be attacking.
Yeah.
BMC was brilliant. I mean, they did control the entire race. They brought the Wolfman back. They brought all these breaks back. They brought all these little attacks back. And they really set Gilbert up for what everybody thought was going to be kind of his, brutal attack on the final on Mur de Huy. And I don't know if you look at the Mur de Huy, it starts out a little bit shallower, and then at the end it gets super steep. And I love it that they stencil the Huy graphic on the road.
Yeah. Probably
one of the best logos in cycling. I just love that. We got to get some clothes with that on it or whatever, but it's just so brilliant. It's a I call it hallowed ground for cycling when you see a hill like that. Anyway, on the Huy, as soon as they get on it, Bentancur, this Colombian that we've talked about, who's been on fire lately, attacks immediately, and that basically forced Gilbert into actions. And so Gilbert's like chasing, but everybody else is following. Purito's there, and his teammate Danny Moreno's there, and Henau's there, and somehow, magically, Dan Martin is there. He's come back from his puncture or whatever, and is somehow in this front group making a go for it. So with not very much to go, like 100 meters, Moreno and Henao, just struggling to catch Bentancur, but then Moreno just puts on the afterjets and catches him with 50 meters to go, and he surges for the win. And Dan Martin gets fourth. It was incredible. So your podium basically was Daniel Moreno, Sergio Henao, and then Bentancur was third. And so you had two Colombians and then the Spaniard Moreno, who, ironically enough, Tim picked for our Ardennes Classic team.
Well, yes.
And yeah, we knew that Moreno is a punchy climber and that he was capable of winning, and we also thought, we weren't sure that J-Rod would quite be up to the task because of we didn't know it the week before, but after crashing at Amstel, we're like, maybe he's not going to be the guy for this race.
Yeah.
And it turned out that he wasn't. He actually did work for Moreno. And then that ride by Martin to get fourth, I just couldn't believe that. He almost got third. He was almost on the podium. So what an incredible talent he's going to be. And he's young too. I don't know. He's in his, I think he's like maybe 25, 26, something like that. So, ironically enough, Mr. Gilbert finished 15th.
Yeah, I was really surprised about that, because I thought sure he was going to do something in that race. I mean, it must be the curse of the rainbow jersey. It must be.
Yeah,
that's the only explanation.
Well, there was a couple of things. He said at the end that he didn't have the legs, and if you're on a bad day, you're on a bad day. His teammates did so much work to put him there, and they really, really put him in the right position. But when they got onto the Mur and Bentancur went off, nobody else wanted to chase Bentancur, and so they made Gilbert do it. Right? They made the favorite do it, which for the peloton was brilliant tactics.
Well, the peloton can be very cruel to the favorites.
Yeah, they did not. They're like, okay, Gilbert, go get him.
Yep.
So I think he burned himself out early a little bit. And then, of course, we had, Rodriguez finished 6th and Valverde finished 7th. And so, a lot of the big names that we had talked about on our team finished in the top. So let me ask you this, Kathy. What do we make of BMC? Think about their classic season and what's happened. Well, and obviously we're going to talk about Liege, but they didn't win.
No, they didn't. I think, they were putting... because they had tipped that boy Finney for Paris-Roubaix podium, if not top step. Everybody was expecting Finney to do something. And he himself said he just got overexcited and burned himself out. But everybody had assumed that Gilbert was going to storm these Ardennes, and he really didn't. And I don't necessarily think it's the team's... his team was really working hard for him, and they were working hard today as well. So it was just he just doesn't have it at the moment, and and I don't know. I really hope that they get it together for the Giro, because I know that Finney's going to be in there, and I really want him back in the pink, because he's just great. But who knows what's the deal with Gilbert?
Yeah, I know that in the cobbled classics, at least one of the suggestions in a tweet from Finney was that the team wasn't sure they didn't rally behind one guy. There was like almost too many chiefs and not enough Indians in the cobbled classics.
Yeah.
Whereas in Ardennes classics,
there was just
like
one.
It's like, this is Gilbert and we're all behind Gilbert. Yeah. And I think that's good, except for the fact that if he's your guy for all three races and the other teams know that, okay, BMC is playing the card for Gilbert, they marked him out in every race. It seemed like he got marked out in all three of these races. Mm. So I think you have to maybe they need to, it's like, it's good to get behind one guy, but don't tell everybody about it, and make sure you have another guy that can be your surprise if they start marking, So I hope that Phil Gilles will get a win, because I like him in the rainbow jersey. I think he's ridden hard. I mean, he has form. He has good form, and I think he even has form to win, obviously. But he just hasn't had luck, and really the other teams have basically out strategized BMC. I think. So, I mean, when you talk about what Garmin did today, and we'll talk about that in a second, I mean, that's what BMC has to do. So, all right. Well, let's talk about then an awesome, awesome race, which arguably this race might be my favorite race this year so far. And I know the beginning wasn't all that exciting, because it never is. It's a super long race, right? It's 261 kilometers. Yeah. So it's super long, and it can only be really described as like a sawtooth. It's just up and down, up and down, up and down. Yeah. Okay, so, we get the small breakaway of Armee from Top Sport Flandern, and De Klerk and Jerome from Europcar, and Long from IAM, who has your favorite jerseys in the peloton, by the way. Yep. I do love IAM's kit. It's brilliant. And then there were two other guys. He had a teammate in there, Furneaux, I think. And these guys end up getting, a large gap, but then, of course, the field wears them down. And something that happened that was interesting is De Klerk's bike broke down with 55 kilometers to go, and he had to get a back wheel change. And then he started riding again, and something wasn't right, and so they changed his wheel again. And then something still wasn't right, and so finally they changed his bike out altogether. But he had dropped out of the break to make this happen. The guy TT's back into the break. Well, yes. Which is pretty incredible.
That was an incredible bit of riding. And also the patience. He didn't throw his bike.
Right. Right. He didn't magically park his bike against the stone wall.
No. It's amazing.
Anyway, it was brilliant riding. Now, obviously having to do all that work, none of those guys were going to be there for the finale, but they got a lot of great TV time, and there were some interesting things that happened. We saw a little bit of Andy Schleck today.
Hooray!
In the Liege-Bastogne.
Who didn't deploy the Schleck chute at any point during this race, and he actually finished it, which I'm really pleased about.
Yeah, he was tough today. I mean, he didn't have it at the finale when the big fireworks went off. But, towards the end, I saw him in the front several times, like trying to figure out how to be there. And I think it was really refreshing to see him there.
Yeah,
actually.
Absolutely.
So, Alberto Contador, we mentioned him in a possibility for our Ardennes team, but we didn't end up picking him. But he's the first guy actually to instigate a genuine attack, and he does that on the Côte de Colonster. And he goes off and he drags basically an elite group with him, right? Let's see, Ryder Heyerdahl, Bentancur, Rigoberto Urán, Igor Anton, Caruso from Katusha, and Rui Costa chase him down, and now all of a sudden we have a super elite group at the front of this race,
the with
several seconds on the front. Yeah, big danger man, and it's only getting hillier, right?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, right, you have Gilbert in the back, who's been at the front all day with his BMC team trying to control things, and right on his wheel is Valverde and Nibali. So again, it's like he's kind of marked, right?
Yeah, that was going to end in tears.
Yeah. So then Garmin plays its cards to perfection and sends Ryder on a flyer solo. And he basically attacks Alberto and that group, and he gains 20 seconds on that group until the Côte de Saint-Nicolas, which is only like 6 kilometers from the finish or something like that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Peloton's still trying to catch, but BMC's having to do all the work because none of the other teams want to do any of the work. And finally, Bentancur, Valverde, J-Rod, Scarponi, and yep, you guessed it, Dan Martin catch up to Ryder. But he's not finished. He gets on the front of that small group, and they still have like 15 or 20 seconds on the main field, and he sets a blistering pace. And Dan Martin is sitting pretty. He just sits wheel. He does no work, while all those other guys are basically trying to just hang on to Hajidal's wheel. So basically on the final climbs with 2K to go, Rodriguez, does kind of his patented explosive attack and basically drops everybody except for Dan Martin.
And a giant panda.
And a giant panda. Yeah, it was brilliant. Yeah, I tried to get screen caps of that, but I just wasn't quick enough because I was so excited.
I'm so upset. I wanted them in tweets, but anyway.
Yeah, I think I saw Cycletard might have one, so go check her feed out. But anyway, Martin bridges up, and then basically with under a K to go, it's like 700 meters, he unleashes a devastating acceleration, and he basically just leaves J-Rod almost standing there, and then it's game over. He crosses the line with his arms up, and what a tactically brilliant execution by the Garmin team.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't seen teamwork like that. I don't think. Well, maybe we saw. Where we saw teamwork like that was when Cannondale won earlier this year with Moreno, Mosier, and Sagan.
And Strada.
Yeah, and Strada.
Yeah.
You kind of got that kind of 1-2 punch. But I think the way that Garmin executed it today, I mean, you couldn't have planned it any better, and it went off without a hitch.
I really thought that Hajidal was going to do it actually until he just got caught because he just was too big. But
yeah, well, I thought maybe Hajidal was going to get caught like Nibali did last year, where Iglinski just rides by him. But Dan Martin was just like, he was so patient. He just sat on the right wheels and he bridged when he had to, and then he had at the end the legs. Nobody else had the legs to do the explosion that he did. So there was also some bad luck at the bottom of the St. Nicholas. Daniel Moreno I don't know if he crashed or if he had a mechanical.
I don't know either.
But I think that finale might have been different if Moreno would have been there at the end. Because then Katusha has 2 riders and Garmin has 2 riders.
Yeah.
And, who knows what happens. So let me ask you this, Kathy. I know that you have a definite opinion on this. But was this race today the best race of the monuments that we've seen this year?
No. I think.
I know you're going to say Paris-Roubaix, right?
Do you know? I mean, it was a good race, and the last 20 kilometers were great, but Roubaix.
I would argue that the last
start.
35 kilometers.
Well,
the last 30, as soon as Alberto Contador attacked, actually I think when Fuglsang attacked, as soon as that happened, that was like 36 kilometers to go or whatever, this race was all over the place.
But no, Roubaix was from the very beginning was an exciting race. So no contest in my view.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, I think, Roubaix has the parcours that make it exciting throughout because it's just so unpredictable, right? I mean, there's so many guys that flat and crash and you don't know what's going to happen. So the parcours kind of like make Roubaix, and it's, obviously it's the queen of the cobbled classics. But as far as like team riding today, I don't think we've seen anything. Even Radio Shack working as hard as they could for Fabian during Paris-Roubaix, it doesn't even come close to what Garmin did today. I mean, everybody on Garmin did something to make sure that Dan Martin won today. That's my take. So
we'll
it was great,
on
and
that.
I know. We've had great monuments this year. If you think about Milan San Remo and that finale, and how Mountain Quebeca wins with Cholik, and then obviously Paris-Roubaix and Flanders and Liège. I mean, all these races this year have been, I think, top notch.
Oh yeah, How are the Grand Tours actually going to top any of this is what I'm wondering. I mean, although, with Trentino, which we're about to talk about, it looks like it is going to be a really exciting Giro.
Yeah, I mean, we have some guys that are going to be in the Giro that are in top form, and we know that RCS puts on great. The Giro every year is super exciting. I don't know how they do it, but for me, it's almost always the most exciting Grand Tour. So we'll see what happens in the Giro. I think it'll be great. But these Cobble Classics this year and these Ardennes Classics, I think, have been top notch.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we didn't have the weather. We didn't have some. I mean, Milan-San Remo we did, but we didn't have like the rainy Paris-Roubaix, which would have made it even more epic. But still, the way that finished in the Velodrome, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, that was ridiculous. All right, so we talked about is Gilbert cursed? Again, this was a race that everybody was picking for him to win, and I don't even know where. Let's see, where did he finish today? He finished 7th. So I'm feeling for Gilbert because I know that this was where his heart was set on the season. So
yeah.
Where does he go now? Like, what's his goal? Is his goal to try to like maybe win the world championship again against Fabian? Where does he go from here? I don't know. But chapeau to him. I think he raced with heart, and he tried hard, and he showed a lot of panache. He just didn't get the victories. So, what else do we have to say about today? You got anything else? I was thinking about Bentancur a little bit because we saw a little bit of him today too. What's he going to be like next year?
Well, I mean, I just think these Colombian riders are amazing. Oh, the one thing I would wanted to say about today's race is my favorite movie starlet, Andre Amador, crashed, and I think he took his collarbone out as well.
Oh.
So, boo. Also, he was on Jack's. He's one of Jack's riders to watch, I think, this year.
And Valverde could have used him in the finale too. Like, if Movistar would have had an extra guy. They had. I mean, Costa was there at the end. He got 9th. So they had a couple of guys up there still. But I think if he would have been there at the end, maybe it's a little bit different for Valverde too, who had a great Ardennes campaign. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay. Let's just quickly review Trentino, because that was a stage race that happened right before Liège.
Yeah.
And then we'll go on and check on our Fantasy Ardennes Classic team. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about Trentino, Kathy?
Well, Trentino is a strange 4-stage race, and the first stage has 2 parts to it. So we see Bouet taking stage 1A in the road race, and then the second part of that stage is a team time trial, which is won by Sky, but Astana are only 13 seconds behind, and this sets up the much anticipated Wiggins Nibali duel of the week, and then Sky's I don't know how to pronounce this, Switsu. Is that how you?
Oh, Konstantin Sitsu.
Sitsu, okay.
Yeah.
He wins stage 2 on the summit. So, as we all know, Sky is just got an incredible depth in their team. So he takes the pressure off Wiggins and just basically takes the stage. Then BMC gets a win in stage 3. But it was stage 4 that was supposed to be, this great clash between Wiggins and Nibali. And Astana basically are, they're getting the measure of Team Sky, because this is the second time now they've pretty much taken the race away from them. And they basically got on the front like Sky do and just set a huge tempo that actually dropped Wiggins from the lead group to begin with. So just as Wiggos is about to get back into the lead group, Nibali just goes for it. And that's when the mechanical happens with Wiggins, and he throws in what can only be described as the most bizarre way. He throws his bike to park it right on the rock face there. But, I mean, by that time, that was it. Nibali was gone, and he took the stage, the GC, King of the Mountains jersey, Astana won, team of the race, blah, blah, blah. So,
yeah.
So, I mean, I think this is really interesting in that this really, really sets up the Giro because, I mean, it's pretty much down to Nibali and Wiggins are going to be two of the guys that are going to be watching each other. And it's how their teams react. Looks like Nibali's got Astana, in the kind of shape that he wants him to be to help him do what he needs to do. Team Sky, we know, are incredibly strong in the 3 weeks. So, is it going to be down to a time trial again in the Giro? Don't know. But I think it's just going to be really exciting, actually.
Yeah, I think it is too. And that stage 4, I watched that. And what I thought was interesting about Astana was, they dropped Wiggins, but then he really had almost clawed his way back. And, kind of Wiggins and Froome, and Tim has talked about this in Talking Tactics, they're pretty patient. Like, they don't blow up. They just are patient, and then they ride back up to the group. And then they're usually there in the last 5 kilometers, and then they attack because all these, teams have set these high paces or whatever. It was really unfortunate that we had the mechanical because I don't know who would have won that. I mean, Nibali showed really great form attacking with Wiggins having a mechanical, but it would have been interesting to really see those two battle each other without this whole mechanical incident.
Yeah.
The other thing that I found interesting, and you talked about a little bit, was this bike throw. And people, I don't know if you've watched this thing on YouTube or whatever. There's a couple of animated GIFs of it too. But when Wiggins throws his bike, he takes it with 2 hands and he rolls it at this stone wall, and somehow it magically parks itself onto this wall and just stops and sets up there. It's like these Pinarellos that are like, I'm a Pinarello. You can't throw me and destroy me. I'm too beautiful to be destroyed.
Good for the bike.
Yeah, it was almost like Wiggins had the Force or something. It was like he's a Sith Lord. And
please. It
was incredible.
There's only so much I can put up with. There's only so much I can put up with.
So people were like, Wiggins, that's not a proper bike throw. You need to show more range. I thought that was the most elegant bike throw I've ever seen.
Like I say, there's only so much I can take of this.
All right. Well, anyway, people, go check that out because it's pretty fun. And the animated GIFs are funny. I think there's going to be a lot of memes about this bike throw. Anyway, I heard that our own Ant is going to actually do a Ant banter about the best tantrums of the peloton.
Oh,
so
yes.
It should be interesting to see what gets included in that list. All right. Another thing that's happening right now is the Tour of Turkey, and we had stage 1 today, actually, while Liege-Bastogne Liège was going on. And I followed it a little bit. Just, I was basically eating my turkey while I was waiting for the race to lighten up. And Marcel Kittel took the gorilla Andre Greipel at the line to win the sprint in stage 1. And Kathy, I will have you know that Elo Kaiser is at the Tour of Turkey.
Hurrah!
And so hopefully, we still got a little. I think there's 5 stages in that or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have another brilliant Kaiser finish that. But there's no way it can top last year's finish.
No, that's true.
All right, let us. Let's take a look at our Fantasy Ardennes team that we picked 2 weeks ago. I kind of felt like we were ahead of the curve talking about the Ardennes because everybody was obviously still talking about Paris-Roubaix. But we picked 8 guys that we thought had a shot at winning or helping win these Ardennes Classics. So we picked 6 guys that we thought would win, and then 2 guys we thought would be great helpers.
Yep.
And the great helpers were Jonathan Tiernan-Lach and Jens Vogt. And
which is weird because I'm sure I saw tweets from Jens saying that he was going to be at the Ardennes Classic, but obviously he wasn't in any of them, so I don't know what that was all about.
Yeah, so we picked Jens, and he turned out to be a dud because he's
wasn't
on vacation.
There. Yeah.
So we'll call Jens a do-over. I'm sure if he would have been there, Kathy, though, he would have been a great contributor because he always is.
Absolutely.
Tiernan-Lach, I saw him in several of these races. I saw him in Flèche Wallonne. I saw him in Liège, and he was at the front doing work. But, he didn't finish Amstel, and he didn't finish Flèche Wallonne, and I do not see his name yet on Liege-Bastogne Liège. So I think he was a good helper, but I actually thought he might have been like a contender.
Yeah, so did I.
So I kind of I'm going to give him a D. I mean, I was the guy
I think you should
really
give him an E.
for him. Yeah, maybe even. He helped, but he wasn't, nobody from Sky won.
No.
Which, we've talked about.
They did a lot of work today as well, but...
Yeah. And I think they had some guys that were capable of winning, like they had Henao there and they had Uran. But I think those guys also kind of abused themselves during the week-long stage races in Paris-Nice. And, I mean, they really to do those races and then come here and have the form that they had in those races. It's a pretty tall ask. So, okay, so those were our two helpers, and we'll move beyond them. Then, okay, we picked Philippe Gilbere.
That was mine, I think.
It was a smart pick because he was a favorite. And if you here's his results. At Provence-Peel, he finished second.
Good.
And we talked about finishing basically second to Sagan.
Yeah.
In a sprint. At Amstel Gold, he was fifth. Flèche, he really fell back. It's like, he tried to basically attack on the Mur de Huy and burned himself out. He was 15th. And then today, basically, I think he got marked out, and he was 7th. So, he in these 4 races, he was in the top 10, 3 of them. So I think you got to give him a solid B.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was toying more with a C, but just because of the expectation. But I'll go with a B. That's fine.
Yeah. Now, what about Rodriguez? What did he do?
Well, because he crashed, didn't he, in Amstel Gold, and he wasn't there. Then it was not even sure if he was going to race the rest of the weeks, because obviously the Giro's what he's looking to. But he came back. He was 6th in Flèche, and then he was 2nd today. And if that Panda had given him a bit more of a run for his money, he might have been first. But so, actually, I think I would give him an A-.
Yeah, I think so too. Having crashed at Amstel and then to go 6th and 2nd. I mean, he almost, Dan Martin was so brilliant today. Nobody was going to beat him. But he was almost there today.
Yeah.
I mean, he said on Twitter, I think, that he basically had a perfect race.
Yeah.
So I got to give him credit. And, who knows what he's going to be like in the Giro. So, okay. Then we picked Vincenzo Nibali, and this was Tim's pick. Now, he did race Trentino, and he won it.
Yeah.
So, but that's not one of the Ardennes classics.
I was going to say, that's not an Ardennes classic. So.
Yeah, we can't really give him credit. But the expectations today, for me anyway, I thought, based on last year, I thought he had something to, basically some business to take care of. And he came in 23rd today. So I'm going to give Nibali a C. I thought he would have finished higher today. If he would have cracked the top 10, I think he earns a solid B+. But at the end, he just wasn't there.
No, not at all.
He spent too much time trying to mark Gilbert and not enough time trying to be the protagonist himself. Unlike our next guy, Valverde. Yeah. So what happened with Valverde?
Well, he didn't race in the race that I can't pronounce.
Provence-Peel, right?
Not even going to attempt that one. He was 2nd in Amstel Gold, which was good. 7th in Flèche and 3rd in Liège.
Yeah.
So, I think, we're going to have to give him I think an A- as well.
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely a guy who, to get in the top 10 and to be on the podium in 2 of those races.
And he was looking strong throughout all of them. He was always up in front, and he was, he's got his movie starlets all, working for him. And he's always up there, and he's not afraid to attack as well when, if he thinks the time is right. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So then last week or 2 weeks ago, I picked Dan Martin, and he didn't finish Amstel, and I was like, oh no. But then he got I think he was 4th in Flèche. Yeah, he was 4th. We talked about that. He came back from 20th place or whatever. And then he was 1st today in an amazing performance. I think Martin, out of all the riders, I think maybe he's the A+.
I'd say an A. I wouldn't say A+. I mean, he didn't finish
you're right.
two
You're right.
of them, for heaven's sake.
If he would have finished the first race, then he would be an A+.
Yeah,
but,
I would be.
All right, so we'll go A with him.
A much tougher grader than you, obviously.
Well, for me, it's like almost any guy who gets first in any one of these three races, it's like, oh, how can you not give him an A+? Because to win any one of them is incredible. But that ride that he did at Flescia, where he has the mechanical, and then he basically rides back through the field in the finale and gets fourth, that, to me, that's almost more incredible than winning today.
Do you know, Panache, I really think that you've got a man crush on him.
On Dan Martin, I do. I think he's incredibly talented, and I think that he's gutsy, and I just really like the way he rides. So it's like I wish I could ride like him.
Honestly,
yes.
in one of these tours, if both Cavendish and Martin are in here, I might as well not be on the podcast because it's just going to be man crush love between you and Tim. What can I say?
Yeah, I love Dan Martin. I do. All right, so then the last guy that was on our team was Daniel Moreno that Tim picked. And we thought, okay, Moreno's going to be a great domestique for J-Rod, but he's also capable of winning himself.
Yeah.
Right? And so, of course, in Flescia, he he went off the front at the very end like a rocket and wins the thing. And everybody's like, where did this guy come from? And we're all tweeting, we know where he came from because our boy Tim Lou picked him for the win. So I think we got to give Moreno an A2. And I think if he doesn't mechanical today, at the bottom of the St. Nicholas, he's probably in the top 10.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give him an A2. So get this, Kathy. In the three races, we picked two of the winners, and we picked on Amstel Gold. I mean, Kreuziger.
Well, we've got a lot of the podium on.
Yeah, you mean Valverde
Amstel
was second
Gold,
in that race.
Liège, we've got all of them. We've got all the podium. We didn't do too badly at all.
I know.
Of course,
I remember last week thinking, I don't know about this team that we've picked, but we did a good job.
We did. We've got the Giro coming up next, Sven.
Yeah, we do. All right. I thought Ardennes week was great. I'm really sad that we're kind of through the spring classics already. It went by so fast, but we have a lot of great stuff coming up in the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
So let me talk about that really quick, and then I'm going to let you talk about this Kermit Arms campaign.
Okay.
Because I don't know anything about that, but it sounds awesome. So in the next 2 weeks, obviously we have this huge focus in the coming fortnight on the first Grand Tour of the season, which is the Giro d'Italia. It starts Saturday, May 4th.
Yay!
And we're going to have a comprehensive preview podcast. And we're also going to be relaunching VeloVoices.com with a new design.
And it looks so good.
And we'll actually give a nod to the Giro in that design. So we'll let everybody know when that happens, but I'm so looking forward to the Giro.
Yeah. On the just quickly on the blog, we'll be doing every stage. We'll have a preview, and then we'll do a short what happened in the stage every day. So like the tour. If anybody was following us during the Tour de France last year, I mean, we're just going to have content a go. So just be sure to watch.
All right. And you'll see tweets from us, and Kathy will be posting all kinds of things on Facebook.
Yep.
So we're going to go, it's going to be just pink everywhere. It's going to be great. All right, there's a lot more racing in the next 2 weeks, starting with the Tour of Romandy, which starts on Tuesday, and it runs 6 days across basically the French speaking part of Switzerland. And this year's race both starts and ends with time trials, and there's only really 2 proper climbing stages. So it'll be interesting to see, the riders that show up there, guys like, it's basically suited for guys like Bradley Wiggins. Outside of the World Tour, there are plenty of high-class races going on that for people that, might not be involved in the Giro. Obviously, we mentioned today the Tour of Turkey, and that finishes next Sunday. So hopefully we'll see an Elo Kaiser victory there.
Yay!
There's also the strangely named 4 Days of Dunkirk, which runs for, I don't know why they name these races these funny names, because it's like 5 days, I think. It runs over 5 days. It's from May 5th or May 1st to May 5th.
And it does make me think that they're going to like take a beachhead or something.
Right. And finally, Kathy, I'm gonna let you announce this last one.
Well, if anyone's been watching Eurosport, you will know that the Tour of Azerbaijan is coming up, and that is running over the same 5 days as the 4 days of Dunkirk. And you know what? For all of the advertising, which is like every 10 bloody seconds, it's actually only a 2.2 category race. So, who knows who's going to be there, but all I can say is thank God the adverts are going to stop before the Giro.
But Kathy, you love the word Azerbaijan.
I do like saying Azerbaijan. But, if I'm not saying it, I'm really bored with the advert. So there you go.
All right. Okay, so that's what's happening in the next 2 weeks. But also what's starting is this Kermit Arms campaign. # Kermit Arms. So yeah. Kathy, what in the heck is... What is this?
Well, this all started this morning because we have Les Vaches de Tour, Give It a Burl, sit down in front, and Paris Wheels and I were talking about something. And I think Les Vaches had put up something about, she was so excited, she did Kermit Arms. And then she had a little clip from YouTube of course, Kermit the Frog. And if anybody grew up with the Muppets, we know that when Kermit gets excited, he throws his arms around and he like wiggles his head and he goes, ah! And so we decided instead of the Mexican wave, what you have to do if you're at a race and the guys go by, or the gals go by, if you're at a women's race, you've got to do Kermit Arms and just like go crazy. And so, I mean, I'm putting my money where my mouth is here. So I've posted the little film clip on Facebook. So go see. And they even do it in slow motion so that you know how to do it absolutely correctly. And so if you post up a picture or a little video of yourself doing that at a race, I will send you a VeloVoices fridge magnet, which I'm getting made up, by the way.
All right.
So go to Facebook.
So now this can be like a local race. This doesn't have to be a pro race, right? You can just go to your...
As long as there's bikes in there and you doing the Kermit Arms, then you post it up on our Facebook page. And then what I really want is, of course, you're going to be there, Ant's going to be there, loads of people are going to be there on the Champs in July. I want us all to do Kermit Arms as the guys, go past. So that's the big thing. So it's the Kermit Arms campaign, and I want everyone to participate.
And how long does this last, Kathy? How long are we doing this? Until
the end of the tour.
Until the end of the tour. Yep. Okay, so you guys have a lot of time to get us videos. All right, excellent. Well, I look forward to that. I haven't seen the Kermit Arms video yet, but I will go on our Facebook page tonight and check it out. Okay, well that brings us to our sprint finish.
Yep.
And we have several questions tonight. So again, thank you all for submitting questions for the sprint finish. Kathy, I'm going to let you start tonight with questions from Gerard van Bohemen.
Okay. His question, which I will answer, is what do you think is the best possible way to clear doping out of cycling? I think that it's unrealistic to think that there will never, that doping can be completely eradicated. However, I would say you draw a line in the sand right now and say, okay, anybody that gets done for doping from now on is out of the sport forever. I just think that's the only way.
So does that include the truth and reconciliation thing, or is it just from now on you dope, you're gone?
Well, I think you need to do the truth and reconciliation, but I mean I think that I would.
I just made the question harder, didn't I?
Yeah, I don't. Well, I wasn't prepared for that. But anyway, you know what? It's a total ban. First time, it doesn't matter how many, total ban, and then you know what? That'll hopefully stop most of it.
Yeah. All right. What's this? He had another question, Kathy. What was the second question?
And
I'll answer it.
The question is for you: is what is the best way to improve women's cycling in the way of TV coverage? And would you like to see it?
Okay. I don't know necessarily the best way to improve the coverage. Would I like to see it? Absolutely. Some of the women's races that I've seen on television this last year have been some of the most exciting races that I've ever seen. One of them being the women's Olympic road race, where Marianne Vos won in the rain. It was incredible, incredibly exciting. I think one way to maybe improve the way it's covered is, a lot of times there's cameras at these races because they're covering the men's race, like Flanders, for example. We saw that they had cameras there, and we saw some footage afterwards of Vos winning. But there are times during these men's races when it's kind of slow.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be great if you could patch in. If it's live, that would be the best. But even if it's not live, if you would patch in some of the exciting parts of the women's races and talk about these women's racers who are super exciting. I mean, inarguably, I think Marianne Vos, she's still going strong in her career. At the end of her career, she will be known as the best cyclist the world has ever seen, in my opinion. So, more women's racing. That's what I say. All right, the next question is from John Curtis on Facebook. He wrote, here's a possible question for you. Why is road cycling better than other forms of cycling, especially when the UK is on the crest of a wave cycling-wise with the Olympics and World Championships in many forms? I don't know that road racing is the best form of cycling. I mean, I enjoy it the most. I think it's beautiful because we go to all these different parts of the world and there's so many different types of parcours. But, I think cyclocross is unbelievably fan-friendly and a great thing to watch. I think mountain biking is great to watch. I think that road racing has gotten the most exposure and has the most dollars behind it right now.
Yeah.
And so we kind of think of it as the best. But I think if you really, spent time watching these other types of cycling, you would really, get into them, especially for me, cyclocross and mountain biking. But, road racing, it's just, it's so beautiful. It's so unpredictable.
Yeah.
It's so there's so many traditions tied to it. We look forward to the same monuments and same tours every year, and there's just been legends, from its inception to now in the sport who've done amazing things. And obviously, it's also been plagued by dark doping, and so. Is it the best? I don't know. I don't think you can. If you look at track cycling, and I don't know that I think track cycling is super exciting too. I think it has less doping than road cycling, in my personal opinion, from what I've heard and from what I observed. I think it's beautiful. So I don't know that road cycling is the best. I think all cycling is beautiful, and I want to see the UCI promote all the different kinds. Okay. Kathy, I think we'll both take a cut at this, but I'm going to let you answer first.
Okay, Michael.
All right.
Michael Grant has asked, which 3 riders will be on the podium at the end of the Giro? And I am going to say Rodriguez, Hijadale, and Valverde.
Wow. Okay, you got... I have 2 riders that you don't have on my list.
I told you we weren't going to be the same. You didn't believe me.
I think it's going to be Hijadale after what he showed today.
Yeah.
I can't count him out.
He is so going to defend.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Hijadale, Bradley Wiggins, and Vincenzo Nibali.
I don't think we're going to see Wiggins.
I think we're going to see J-Rod be really great at the Tour, and I think he could surprise everybody there, but I don't think he's going to be quite ready for the Giro. That's just me. That's a great question, though, and we'll see what happens. It's going to start on May and early May, and we've got 3 weeks of glorious Grand Tour racing. Okay, one last question, and I don't know the answer to this, but I'm going to take a cut. This is from Justin Valenstein on Twitter. His Twitter handle is J_Valenstein. He said, what are your thoughts on USA Cycling scheduling the national championships to overlap the Giro? And to be honest, I didn't know that USA Cycling had done that. And if they have, I'm extremely disappointed by that. I think that, for guys like Taylor Phinney, who definitely want to be at the Giro, it's problematic if you want to contend for your national championship and you want to race the first Grand Tour of the year. I don't think anybody's national championship should be scheduled over a Grand Tour.
I agree with that.
All right. You know what, Kathy? I'm not going to say anybody won this sprint finish tonight, but when we see the podium finish of the Giro,
we'll find out.
and Hidjedal, Wiggins, and Vincenzo Nibali are standing up there, then I'll declare myself the winner.
Wiggins is not going to be on there.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. Tim, we miss you, but Kathy, I love going back and forth with you. It was a blast. It was a blast.
Oh, it seemed really strange that Tim wasn't here. I think I like it better when he's here.
Yeah, well, Tim is the guy who knows like all the facts.
Yeah. I had to do so much research for this now. Oh my God, I had to do so much work. It still didn't come out as good as it would if it had been Tim, but there you go.
Yeah, I mean, with Tim, it just kind of flows off the tongue, man.
Yeah.
He's like Obi-Wan Kenobi of facts.
Exactly.
All right. Anyway, we thank you guys for joining us tonight. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/VeloVoices. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at VeloVoices. And be sure to check a look at the blog at www.velovoices.com. And especially in the next week or so, I think we're going to do the design next weekend. We'll do a redesign and right before the Giro. So make sure you take a look at that.
Remember the Kermit Arms campaign?
Yeah, remember the Kermit Arms campaign. And we will talk to you guys again in 2 weeks. Good night.
Bye.
VeloVoices. Many voices. One passion. Pro cycling. For fans. By fans.